So next, I'd like to talk about chargeback workflows. And as I mentioned before, this is probably the feature of version 7 chargebacks that I'm most excited about, because I think it has the biggest impact for each of you as you use EnergyCap, making your lives easier on a month-by-month basis. So what are chargeback workflows? They're simply a way to organize your bill calculations and your bill splits into a step-by-step process where it's really clear that this comes before this, and you can process everything that should work at the same time together, and you can also roll them all back together if you need to do that as well. So if you come back to this diagram I had mentioned before, chargeback workflows sits kind of on top of both bill calculations and bill splits, because both of them can be controlled by a chargeback workflow. So the four main features of chargeback workflows. I mentioned a step-by-step order of processing. You can group similar chargebacks together into a step. You could group 50 electric meters together and process them all at the same time. You could also process 50 electric submeters and 3,000 water meters at the same time. That's fine. If they're all associated and they have the same logical reason to be calculated at the same time, they can all be part of a single step. Chargeback workflows also increase visibility. They help your organization know what has been done and what has not yet been done in the system, and is there any missing data? And you'll see that as we go through the examples. And as I mentioned before, they're also really easy to reverse. So similar to what we did with bill calculations and bill splits, let's highlight those things that are new in version 7. There's a lot of purple on this screen, right? All of this idea of really structuring the order together is new. And yes, some people might say, well, I could reverse chargebacks in 3. I agree. Could you easily reverse them? Not in this way, not in this sophisticated of a manner, where you can see all the things that relate to each other and then just simply kind of peel it back if you run into a problem. So how do you set these up? Well, you've already seen part of this, right? We started today by creating a simple workflow. It was nothing more than a name and a couple of steps. That's all it takes to set up a workflow. You create a new one, you give it a name, you order the steps. That's it. If you want to change the order later on, you want to rename the steps, fine. It's really very simple. And then as you go through the process of either creating your chargebacks or after the fact, you can take a chargeback and add it to a workflow step. So this is the part where you create the workflow. Once it's created, all you need to do is make sure that you assign whatever things should be part of that step to that step along the way. So you've already seen this. We had 5 workflow steps in our electric workflow. Some of them were calculations. Some of them were splits. It would be nice if we could do all of these things in a row and we didn't have to jump to different parts of the application to make that happen. Once you have a workflow and you have chargebacks already assigned to that workflow, what do you do with it? Well, the way you process, pretty straightforward. You go to the workflow, you pick which month you wish to process, and then you start just walking through step by step by step by step. You're going to see that in just a second. You don't even have to go anywhere to see the results. They're all listed on the screen for you, and if you need to, an optional step is reverse, right? You can reverse any step along the way. This is a feature that I think is a lot more fun to see than it is to talk about. So let's take a look at our monthly electric workflow. So this is the workflow we created earlier in the day. Now that I've come to run it, you'll see here are each of those steps. Remember, we had 5 of them that we had defined. And as we went through the process, we added calculations to the steps, and we added bill splits to the steps. What was happening behind the scenes is EnergyCap was tagging each one of those and is putting it into a particular step for the workflow. So now I can see all of, like in this case, all of the submeters that I have assigned to the calculate submeter bills step. Let's go to September. right? We just processed all of August. We did it manually. Some things we did on the meter, some things we did on the account, some things we did from the chargebacks module. Now I'm going to show you how quickly you can process a workflow. All the same steps we did before, but now we're going to do it through the chargeback workflow. So here I see step number 1. I can tell that it has not yet been run because you'll notice that it has a gray number 1 next to it, and you'll see that change in just a moment. You'll also see that over here it says not calculated for September. Well, let's go ahead and calculate. So we're doing the first step of our workflow. We're combining 2 vendor bills together, and you'll notice a couple things changed here. Number 1, the number 1 changed to purple. That helps me see as a user that that step has in fact been run at least once. You also have a new table here that helps you identify what happened. Did it do what I expected it to do? Here we can see that this step created 1 bill. Well, that's what I expected. I wanted to take 2 vendor bills and smash them together into 1 new bill. Great. We've also given you additional information about all of the bills on that meter, because there might be other things on that meter as well. This will allow you to see how many bills in total are on that meter, and how is that meter trending. So especially if you have submeters, as an example, if you are generating submeter bills, anyone who runs submeters knows that's only part of the story. You need to make sure that your readings were accurate, right? So in the past, we said, well, run a certain report or go check this data before you run your submeter bills. Now I would say it's a whole lot faster. Just run your bills. We show you the variance right here now. And you can compare how did this meter compare this month versus the month before, and also versus the same period last year. So you can compare season to season, how are we performing? And I don't have to go anywhere. I can do it all right here. And I'll show you in a second what if there's a problem, how do you deal with it? So we've done that first step. We've combined our bills. Let's go ahead and generate our submeter bills based on our submeter readings. Again, I don't have to pick a billing period because it's already been selected up here at the top. Great. All 3 of my submeters had 1 bill created. Fantastic. That's what I was hoping for. And I can see how my variance is, right? In this case, I might need to do a little bit of research. I have a variance of 150% compared to last month. Is that normal? Is it not? I'm not sure. The more history I have on the meter, the easier it's going to be for me to be able to find that out. I can also see my unit cost and see if something has jumped out of bounds from what I expect. As I'm scrolling through here, you can see we've got step number 3, calculate the difference between vendor and submeters. We'll go ahead and run that. You may have also noticed that as I run these steps, these boxes in the corner also change color. So every time you run a step, the number up here on the side will turn to purple. That's also a very quick way to jump to a step. So in this case, I've run steps 1, 2, and 3. When I want to run step 4, I can simply click on it, and it jumps me right down to step 4, because some of these lists can be rather long if you have a lot of meters that you're processing. We'll go ahead and true up our cost. Great, I started with a bill. This step created 1 bill per submeter. But you'll also notice that it's telling me that there are 2 bills on the submeter now. Right? And that's what I expected. I had my original bill, and now I just assigned some additional cost to it to true it up with my vendor bill. So that's great. I get all that information. I'm right here. I don't have to go anywhere. And then finally, our last step was to split the submeters to the facilities and the rides. Okay? That step split those bills. I had 6 original bills. You'll see that the original bills are highlighted in a gray bar to indicate that that's the master bill. From these 2 master bills, we generated 2 child bills per recipient. It's exactly what I was looking for. Everything looks great. A lot cleaner than jumping around and trying to keep track. Did I do that step yet? I'm not sure. It just totally eliminates some of those questions. Any thoughts, comments, or questions that you have about running the workflow? Okay. So I'm done with the month of September. I did it all in one screen. If I wanted to, I could run reports. I could send bills to other people. We're going to run it a second time for the last month that we have data, which is the month of October. By the way, one of the neat things about workflows, once you configure workflow, this can also be a forensic tool for you. Perhaps somebody who normally runs the workflow process is out of the office, or you need to answer a question about something that happened a couple months ago. You can go back in history and see any given month what happened. So if you recall, August, I ran all the steps, but I didn't run them through the workflow. I still see all the details here, but nothing was done with these workflow steps. They were all done outside the process. But I can really quickly and easily pull up the information, take a look at it, and see if anything may have been missed, if there were any errors that were logged as part of the process.
I would run a step multiple times. Will it generate the bill multiple times?
Great question. The question was, if I run the step multiple times, will it generate the bill multiple times? The answer is no, it will not. It keeps track of which billing periods it has generated, or in the case of submeters, which readings it has generated bills for, and it will not duplicate that. And you'll see an example of that in just a minute. Great question. Other questions? Let me go back in there. We're going into the month of October. So we have our vendor bills. We're ready to combine them together. We go ahead and run that. Great, we generated a bill. We're going to generate our submeter bills. Hang on. Does anyone else see the problem? I have 3 submeters. I expected each of them to get a bill for this month, but one of them did not get a bill. It's one of the really powerful things about this screen is it allows you to quickly see where you're missing data. And each of these tables can be sorted. So you could sort by how many bills were created in this particular month. Or you could sort by variance or sort by cost to see if there are any outliers. And in this case, I see I've got a submeter that I didn't have a reading for, right? And I might have to pause and leave the workflow and go deal with that. That might be a process I have to do outside of Energy Cap. In this case, I remembered, right? I had a meter that was down. It didn't get imported with all of my automatic readings. Somebody gave me a file after the fact. I forgot to upload it, right? But before I went any further in my workflow and messed up any other calculations, I saw it right away. Fantastic. Let me go ahead and import that missing reading. So here I'm importing an interval reading. Let's head back over to workflow and try again. Okay, so I can see again right where I left off. I left off with step number 2. Let's run it again. You can run these steps as many times as you need to. And you'll have a history right here on the side of how many times you ran them. So I can see that it ran once and it generated 2 bills. It ran a second time and generated 1 bill and produced 2 errors. This goes to the question that was just asked. If I open up the error sheet here, what you'll see is that the bill already existed for those 2 meters. So we didn't duplicate. But we gave you a message to say, hey, this is why we didn't generate the bill this time. Now, for some of you, and this will tell a little bit about your personality, for some of you, this screen looks great. You're ready to move on. For others, you say, oh, I don't really want to have an error sitting there because someone's going to think I messed up. Okay? So The nice thing about workflow is it's so easy to roll back and do again. And because every bill is created in a self-contained batch, you can roll back a step without having some tremendous impact on other part of your systems. You know exactly what it's going to impact. It's only going to impact bills within that batch. So if I hit rollback here, or revert, it's going to reverse this step, including all of the times that the chargeback engine ran for this step. And it's going to do it all at once for me. It's going to clean the whole thing out. So let's try that. I'm going to click reverse. I'm going to delete the bills. Now nobody knows I messed up, right? They're all clean. Some of you are going, oh, harmony again. Fantastic. So it looks like I never ran the step, right? Because if you reverse it, it is as if you never ran the step. So now my purple has gone away on my number 2, and it shows up here that step number 2 has not been completed. I'm going to run step number 2 again. I have 3 new bills. This time all my readings are there. It looks pristine and nice. Did I need to do that? No. I could sit here and drive some of you nuts, and I could keep clicking, calculate, and keep producing errors lots and lots of times and leave them there. No big deal. Or I could clean it up all with one click. It reverses the entire step, and then I can run it again. Totally your choice. So much easier than trying to track down all the things that you need to reverse in either version 3 or the installed client.
Chargeback log would catch all that, right?
Question was, isn't that logged in the chargeback log? You'll have to wait and see. I think I have a pretty educated crowd today. So let's go ahead, we'll finish out this workflow. Okay, that was step 3. Let's do step 4 and step 5. Now, what happens if you get all the way done with your workflow and then you realize, oh, I missed a submeter reading, right? We don't require that you reverse from the bottom up, but in most cases, that is what you're going to want to do. We didn't require it because we said there's some scenarios where maybe that just doesn't make sense. But if I wanted to go back because I found out after the fact that I had missed that submeter reading at step 2, because that really would have messed up a lot of things down the line, in most cases, just start at the bottom and just start reversing steps. Reverse step number 5, reverse step number 4, 3, get back up to 2, fix it, and then just flow back through all the steps again.